I saw an article today that I felt absolutely necessitated a response. So I wanted to just go ahead and do this on video. This is an article published on Salon Today by Sophia Tesfaye. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but that's my best attempt. Sophia Tesfaye is Salon's deputy politics editor, and she published this article titled Mumps Outbreak in the Camps. What's going on in Trump's detention centers? I'm just going to jump straight into this article and kind of address some of the things that I think are misleading as we get to them. But from the introduction. In the lead up to both Donald Trump's election and his first midterm elections, the Republican Party and right-wing media outlets like Fox News aggressively pushed the xenophobic myth that migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border were bringing a new outbreak of long-eradicated communicable diseases like smallpox. That was baseless fear-mongering meant to play up the manufactured crisis in an effort to scare up votes. Fair enough. It's an opinion. I disagree with it, but it's a reasonable opinion. She goes on, vaccines have drastically reduced the number of mumps cases in the United States. There have only been about 150 diagnosed cases of mumps outbreaks throughout the entire country since 2015. Yet, according to a new report from the Centers for Disease Control, there have been 921 new cases of mumps in less than a year in and around immigration facilities. Since October of 2018, 890 immigrants and 31 detention facility employees have come down with mumps. Now, this is where there seems to be a bit of an issue, because if, as the first paragraph said, the right-wing talking points were a xenophobic myth and baseless fear-mongering, then how is it that exactly what they said happened? We have an communicable disease that was basically eradicated by vaccines all of a sudden popping up in these detention centers. It seems like the fear-mongering was maybe correct. I don't know, maybe, but that's not the case that Sophia is making here. From there, she goes on to talk about mumps a little bit, moves back and forth a few times. Later in the article, she's adding a little bit of more context around what's going on in these facilities. And she says, as has been widely reported, detainees are denied basic medical care and access to items of personal hygiene, including toothbrushes and soap. So here, this is information that's from an Office of the Inspector General report. She's actually referring to a couple of different reports from emergency unannounced inspections that the Office of the Inspector General for the Department of Homeland Security conducted on facilities that are under the auspices of ICE. So, reading from one of the pages from the report, facilities are required to provide toiletry items, including shampoo, toothbrushes, toothpaste, lotion, and soap. When they enter the facility, detainees at Essex, that's the detainee facility in Essex, New Jersey, receive a bag with 1 bar of soap, 1 stick of deodorant, 1 toothbrush, a small tube of toothpaste, and a comb. Detainees reported never being given lotion or shampoo and never received any toiletries after intake. Our review of the facility toiletry stock revealed that the facility had no lotion on hand and the housing units did not have any toiletry supplies to provide to detainees. Facility staff told us the detainees just need to purchase hygiene items through the commissary, which is in direct violation of the ICE standards. So clearly the OIG is noting a deficiency in this facilities. Not challenging that at all. However, the claim that has been widely reported detainees are denied basic medical care and access to items of personal hygiene, including toothbrushes and soap, is not true. toothbrushes and soap are the very items that this report says the detainees were given. Now, the fact that there wasn't extra on hand, they weren't given additional toiletries later on, that's a problem, and one that we'll see ICE is actually rectifying. But I wanted to address that one directly. The next misdirected comment that needs to be addressed directly is from later on in that same paragraph. The DHS Office of Inspector General has previously reported, quote, nooses in detainee cells, overly restrictive segregation, inadequate medical care, unreported security incidents, and significant food safety issues. All right, so all of these issues are addressed in the ICE response to this report, which we'll get to. I'm going to read the whole thing because it very clearly states what ICE's intentions are and what they're trying to do about these problems. But the one that needs to be directly countered is that first statement, nooses in detainee cells. That sounds absolutely horrible on the face of it. But if that initial response to it is what is intended, then it's very ingenuine reporting, because these aren't strictly speaking nooses. So here's another page from one of the Office of Inspector General reports, and I'm sorry, I'm terrible at this, but these are pictures of the quote nooses. Now, the reason I know about this is because I actually studied this report, which came out late last year, late 2018, and it talked about these nooses in these detention facilities. It was in one, maybe two different facilities that they encountered them, and per ICE standards, the detainees are not supposed to have these in their rooms. So it was up to the individuals running the facilities, the security, and the maintenance staff, etc., to ensure that these were taken down. Now, they were given the nickname nooses because reportedly a couple of detainees had attempted to hang themselves using one, which is terrible, something that no one wants to happen, and something that should be prevented if at all possible. However, the detainees weren't largely putting these up in their rooms for that purpose. They were actually braided bed sheets, as you can see from the picture. I'll hold it up one more time. These are braided bed sheets that the detainees were hanging from different items in their vents. They were in their rooms. They were hanging them off of vents. They were hanging them off of their bunk beds, different areas. They were being used to create privacy screens for the bathroom areas as well as for their individual bunk areas at times. They were being used as clotheslines, probably a number of other things, other uses in the cells. That's why they were being hung up. But when that term noose is reported, I know the first thing that came to my mind was literally braided rope nooses being left in these detainee cells, and it seems to be suggesting that security guards are leaving them there to torture or at the very least intimidate the detainees, which is not the case. These were not left there by the security guards. This is something that was constructed by the detainees themselves and put up for legitimate uses. Whether or not they were authorized is another question altogether, but calling them nooses and not adding any additional context to it is pretty irresponsible in my opinion. All right, getting towards the end of the article. As a recent poll of Republicans makes clear, this is a deliberate strategy. An overwhelming majority of Republican voters support Trump's draconian policies to crack down on illegal immigration, including his infamous and non-existent border wall. So the implication here is that these undesirable conditions in these camps is something that Donald Trump and Republicans are intentionally pursuing, something that is actually a desirable outcome. And this could not be further from the truth. And this can be seen directly from ICE's own response to the Office of the Inspector General report. So here is the recommendation from the Office of Inspector General at the end of their report. Quote, recommendation: we recommend the acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement ensure that enforcement and removal operations field offices that oversee the detention facilities covered in this report address the additional issues outlined in this report and ensure facility compliance with ICE's 2011 performance-based national detention standards. And the ICE response is, quote, concur. So the first sentence is that ICE themselves agree with the issues that were laid out and the recommendation. ICE enforcement and removal operations has reviewed each of the issues outlined in this report, and field offices have taken corrective action at each facility when warranted. ICE has identified ongoing actions to address the OIG deficiencies identified. Specifically, according to ICE, improvements have been made to the Essex County Correctional Facility. This is the facility in Essex, New Jersey, including replacing the food service manager, training staff on proper food handling, removing and replacing menu items with input from detainees, and conducting random food quality testing. Essex also reported improvements in its segregation practices, including documenting why detainee strip searches were conducted and revising recreation schedules to add additional recreation time. ICE has reported improvements to facility conditions, including an extensive and systematic cleaning and renovation of the ICE detainee housing units and improving its provision of toiletries for detainees. At the LaSalle ICE Processing Center, this is a processing center in Louisiana, ICE reported taking corrective action to address food labeling. At the Adelanto ICE Processing Center, this is in Adelanto, California, ICE reported improvements to food service and facility conditions, including implementing staff instructions on proper food handling and storage with daily management checks to ensure compliance, increasing recreation time for detainees, cleaning showers daily with weekly inspections, monitoring shower maintenance and sanitation by facility staff, and cleaning, power washing, and painting showers with a special acrylic marine paint. At the Aurora ICE Processing Center, this is the processing center in Aurora, Colorado, ICE reported the food service manager had the packaged food properly relabeled and dated and provided remedial counseling to staff on proper food storage. ICE responded it is committed to correcting all issues identified by the OIG. ICE will provide documentation to OIG as each facility is reviewed to ensure corrective actions have been completed. Estimated completion date September 30th, 2019. OIG analysis. We consider these actions responsive to the recommendation, which is resolved and open. We will close this recommendation when we receive documentation confirming that the follow-up inspections and other corrective actions have been completed. So if this was an intentional, systematic use of force and intimidation to commit acts of cruelty on these detainees, then why is ICE immediately addressing these problems? Now, something that's really important to note. These visits to these facilities took place in 2018. Several of them took place in early to mid 2018, the last of which took place in November 2018. I believe that was the visit to the Essex facility in New Jersey. So all of these visits from which we get these crazy quotes in this article took place last year, and ICE has been working to correct these deficiencies since then. Something else that is really important to note, as you can hear from the description of the facilities, none of them are on the border. These are all processing facilities that are away from the border, and they are operated by private organizations that are contracted by ICE to manage these facilities. So ICE is not directly in control of them. Now, they are responsible for them, which is why they're taking actions to review the processes better and correct these deficiencies. But this isn't ICE officers and CBP officers on the border doing these things. And the conditions at the border facilities, the camps that have actually been placed on the borders, are not the ones that are being reported as having problems. Really something that's important to note, in my opinion. Anyways, that's all I really had right now. I hope you found this interesting, maybe somewhat educational. If you did find it interesting at all, please share it with your friends, with your networks. And if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comments, and I'll respond as I can. I'm going to put the articles, the OIG reports, and an article I actually wrote about this issue last year. All of those are going to be in the comments or the description below, so you can find that. You can do the research for yourself if you want. But that's all I have today.